Welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. We have a packed show ahead, but first, my open. For 4 years, we listened to unsupported allegations of a conspiracy by a foreign government to interfere with our presidential election. That Russia stole the election of 2016, implanting their Russian asset, Donald Trump, as president of the United States. For 4 years, we were told Trump was a Putin puppet, a Russian asset, that we must do everything we can to get rid of him and save America. Almost on a daily basis, the Democrat medieval minstrels in Congress put on their conspiracy show as congressmen like Adam Schiff pontificated about real evidence, evidence that he had seen with his own eyes, evidence that required that Donald Trump be gone because America and democracy were at stake. Never, ever, not once did we see a scintilla of evidence. Never. Were we supposed to take it all on faith? They put the president and the country through hell as the work of Congress was halted and as the media every day reminded us we were getting closer and closer to the big Russian reveal of Russia collusion that fizzled much like Rob Mueller did when he showed up and testified. And then the medieval minstrels took another show down to the sub-basement with fantasies of foreign interference in their medieval star chamber. In fact, they never stopped. And now, just over 2 weeks, the president's lawyers come forward alleging an organized criminal enterprise, a conspiracy by Democrats, especially in cities controlled and corrupted by Democrats. The president's lawyers alleging a company called Dominion, which they say started in Venezuela with Cuban money and with the assistance of Smartmatic software, a backdoor is capable of flipping votes. And the president's lawyers alleging that American votes in a presidential election are actually counted in a foreign country. These are serious allegations. But the media has no interest in any of this. But you and I do, as we should, because 73 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. Republicans took seats in the House they said would be won in the Democrat blue wave that never came. And so far, we've held the Senate. They say the risk of our giving false hope should be enough to stop us. 2 weeks later, I say the risk of not looking at what is staring us in the face is too great to not stop us. Now, the president's lawyers offered evidence by way of affidavits, which I told you last Saturday as a judge from a legal perspective are sworn statements of individuals signed under penalty of perjury, meaning they know they face the penalty of prosecution and 5 years if they lie. These sworn statements are factual allegations, are part of virtually every lawsuit. It's how you start a case. The president's lawyers have indicated that they have 250 such affidavits under oath, people ready to testify, people ready to face the hate that the left has inflicted upon all of us from day one. And you know what I'm talking about. Let's not kid ourselves. There's not a lot of violence going on right out there now, because they believe they got their way. Forgive me, but I believe the only important thing is making sure that the American people and Lady Justice get their way. Consequences be damned. On Thursday, Rudy Giuliani made clear that Democrat cities were targeted by crooked Democrats who stole votes. These were cities where they were comfortable with corruption, where political corruption ran through the bloodlines of cities like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Detroit. He described election night numbers going in the favor of Donald Trump, but by the next morning, absurd increases in Biden votes. Curious, so many mail-in ballots for Biden with no down-ticket vote. In Atlanta, a sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury The affiant of Fulton County Observer says she observed absentee and mail-in ballots being counted. Many of the boxes of ballots had voted for 100% Biden, 0 Trump. The ballots appeared to be perfectly filled out as if they were pre-printed, with the presidential candidate selected. Another declarant, who holds dual doctorates in economics and engineering from Stanford, states that Georgia uses Dominion voting systems, which has a history of technical glitches, and in Atlanta, these software glitches could have affected thousands of absentee mail-in ballots. On November 4, Biden received a batch of 134,886 votes at 6:30 in the morning. In Wisconsin, the day after the election, Biden received a dump of 143,000 votes at 3:42 a.m. The upshot in the graph is stunning. It suggests there was a pause and then a filling in the needed votes to win. How do we know this? He knew it through affidavits, those sworn statements where you can actually go to jail if you don't tell the truth. Interesting, though, isn't it? Adam Schiff and the Democrats can lie to us literally for years with no consequence to them. But American citizens who put themselves on the line and face the disdain, the hatred, and threats of others in a case like this essentially get prosecuted. And witnesses are putting themselves in the line of fire simply because they heard or saw something that was incredibly dangerous to speak of, but about which they chose to speak. 2 individuals and 1 Dominion employee signed affidavit. And yet there is a hue and cry by the media to see these affidavits. Many of them are already on file in lawsuits across the country. But these witnesses, many of them are seeking protection and therefore their safety until the time that it is necessary for them to testify. Does anyone really believe that they are exaggerating when they say they are in fear? Does anyone really think that the group that brought us hysteria, division, and chaos for 4 years while Donald Trump was president and now is unusually calm wouldn't react to a narrative different than the one that they are comfortable with now? I ask you, what is the problem in seeking to confirm that this election had no irregularities? Why have we found thousands of ballots after the election was called? Why were observers not allowed to watch, which was their legal right? And additionally, to make sure that everything was done correctly? As an aside, on November 5th, I tweeted that there were complaints of voter fraud. Where is the FBI and the DOJ? The tweet was removed because some or all of the content was disputed and might be misleading. I then asked my girlfriend, Jackie, to tweet the exact same thing. She did, and her tweet has not been removed, leading me to believe that it's got nothing to do with algorithms and that the censorship going on in this country is a censorship about individuals. Censorship of people is in full play now. Why was there an overnight popping of the vote tabulation that cannot be explained for Biden? The issue now is, are there enough trend lines to overturn an election in an individual state? Can a court throw out thousands of votes because of instances of fraud or overvoting? How can we assess whether the provisional ballots are to be counted if a voter shows up to vote and is told he or she has already voted by mail? How do we handle that? How do we handle the judges in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania, the Secretary of State in Georgia, who unilaterally changed the election law without the appropriate legislative authority? Should these states be able to certify when there is a constitutional issue that clearly only the legislature can change the election rules? How is it that Biden underperformed Hillary in every city except the 4 that Rudy accused them of, the 4 cities that Rudy accused of being corrupt Democrat strongholds? These are the questions that aren't going away. For the sake of our republic, we have an obligation to get honest and truthful answers. In fact, demand them. Stay tuned. And that's my open. Let me know what you think on my Facebook and Twitter, #Judge Jeanine. And if you like my opens, you'll love my new book, Don't Lie to Me, available right now everywhere. A lot more on the president's fight for election transparency still ahead in the hour. But first, some big developments in the fight against COVID. Take a listen to the president himself.
Pfizer and others were way ahead on vaccines. You wouldn't have a vaccine if it weren't for me for another 4 years, because FDA would have never been able to do what they did.
White House Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern joins me now with more. Good evening, Brian. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, I understand that the Biden campaign is complaining that they are not getting sufficient information from the Trump White House on COVID facts and statistics. Is that true?
They are complaining in that way, but it is not true that they don't have enough information. In fact, Judge, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you. But frankly, they keep citing, the most frequent thing they cite is the vaccine distribution plan. I have wonderful news for them. Here it is. It's publicly available. I printed it off cdc.gov before I came to speak with you, and 64 different jurisdictions, including all of the states, have worked with us to design specific distribution plans as well. And General Perna, the great general in charge of the logistics, has assured us, has confirmed that we're ready to ship to every zip code in America within 24 hours of FDA approval. This is monumental. And the president's right. His leadership made this happen. With Operation Warp Speed, we're getting vaccines to market 5 times faster than any similar effort in history. In terms of other data they're asking for regarding cases, there was a whole presentation last evening, this week rather, in the White House press briefing room on that data. We made it publicly available. They were complaining about strategic national stockpile information. That's been presented as well. All of this information is available, Judge. It's simply a red herring to try to put political pressure on us. But the fact is, the president's response has been historic. He is making every resource available. He's sparing no effort to get testing, treatments, PPE, surging personnel, and very soon we're going to put an end to this pandemic with vaccines. China may have started it, but President Trump is putting an end to it.
Okay, and you say that that information, that COVID information, is public, that it is a plan. Is it available to everyone? Where can they find it?
Yes, Judge. The playbook for distribution, for example, is on cdc.gov. They could go and print it off. I mean, I guess they maybe want us to mail them a copy. I don't know, but it's there to be seen. And there is a web page, in fact, that CDC also hosts with a summary of each of these jurisdictions' plans as well, because they worked very closely with the Trump administration on those plans to make sure that we can reach every zip code in America. So we want to make sure every minority community has access. We want to make sure, CVS and Walgreens, companies that all Americans know and are familiar with, are participating in this program, so that every American who wants a vaccine will be able to get a vaccine. And we'll be starting, Judge, with our most vulnerable Americans, so that we can continue to dramatically reduce the risks associated with this virus and make sure that we get through this pandemic as fast as possible.
Okay, and that is the question I was going to ask you. When you say, the most vulnerable population, will that be all over the country? Will it be in every state? I mean, how does that, very quickly, just give the public an idea of what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely, Judge. So I think as most of your viewers probably know by now, the highest risks are posed to elderly Americans, those with comorbidities, people, for example, in nursing homes, long-term care facilities. So those are the sorts of things that they'll be looking at. There's an independent board that makes recommendations. Ultimately, the CDC makes a determination. But really, that's what we're projecting, is that those sorts of considerations, those in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, over a certain age with comorbidities, that's how we'll distribute it to make sure that those Americans who have the highest risks are vaccinated fastest, so that we can reduce their level of anxiety, reduce their level of risk, so that we can get back to normal life really as fast as possible.
How long do you think that will take? I mean, there are over 300 million Americans. I mean, there will be people who will not take the vaccine, I suspect. At some point, is there a requirement, or is it like the flu vaccine that, if you want to take it, you do, if you don't, you don't?
Yeah, Judge, I mean, the Trump administration is pro-freedom, and we want to equip people with as much information and resources as possible. We are encouraging people very strongly to take it, and we're sending our public health professionals out to message that this process has not cut a single corner. It has been a very thorough evaluation. The clinical trials have been some of the largest in history, yes. And there are numerous layers of independent scientific review that will certify that any vaccine that is given to the public is safe and effective. And so we're looking at probably about 20 million Americans in December, and on a rolling basis, tens of millions of doses each and every month. And we think every American will have a vaccine available in the first part of next year, probably in the March or April timeframe, for anybody who wants it. Yeah.
All right. Brian Morgenstern, thanks so much. And still ahead, Congressman Doug Collins, Rickenell, and Molly Hemingway. But first, a Justice exclusive. I speak with Atlanta attorney Lynn Wood about his personal fight for transparency in Georgia's election system and why the battle is far from over.